Hey guys, welcome to the setup for this month ahead, February 2021. And the theme this time is Andorra, as you guys helped me vote. So let's get straight into it. First of all, I have to start out by saying this one was a challenge. I have not had to do such a small country yet, so it was a little bit more tricky trying to find the best parts to exhibit into my journal. So I did try my best. I hope you guys enjoy, and I'm sorry if I missed something essential Andorra. There's just not a lot out there on you guys that I can research from the comfort of my home in Perth. So I've tried my best, and we'll try and show a little bit of what you guys have to offer. So to start, because it is such a small country and so many of you, like me, were unaware of the country itself, I'll just give you a little bit of background on what the country is and where it is. So it's actually a diarchy headed by two co-rulers, which means Spain and France actually co-rule this country. So it's right between them, and it's actually the sixth smallest nation in Europe. So there's only an area of 468 square kilometres to this place. And I live in Perth, which is funny because that's one of the most isolated cities in the world. And it's 13 times bigger than this country itself. So that was quite mind-boggling, just to try and conceive how small this country is. So yes, very small, as I've said 100 times, but there is some beautiful things that I've managed to discover. So let's check out what I chose for the cover page. So when I was thinking about the cover page, I knew that I wanted to display its very mountainous region. It's basically situated right in the Pyrenees Mountains, and it's known for skiing and winter sports kind of things. But I felt like I'd done the whole winter vibe a lot lately, being Germany and Norway. So I thought I would focus more on the views that you would see maybe in summertime or springtime around the Pyrenees Mountains. So I came across this place called Canillo, and above Canillo they actually have a viewpoint called Mirador Roc del Quier. I think I'm saying that right. And it is basically a massive walkway that's about 20 meters long, and 8 meters of that is on land, and then 12 meters of that is like you're suspended above the city. And this is up so high that you feel like you're, levitating above the city itself. It sounds incredible, looks incredible. The photos are amazing. So I thought I would try and reflect that in my cover page. It also has at the end of this platform a giant sculpture of a man called the Ponderer, and he's sitting there just taking in the breathtaking scenery. It just looks incredible, and that, if I ever get to Andorra, would be one of the highlights. I think that would be just stuck in your brain forever, seeing that kind of view for yourself in the flesh, of course. So that looked really cool. And so I thought I would try to create a loose watercolor of the mountains beneath, and then go in with a little bit more detail for the sculpture itself, and of course our traveling girl who's peering out over the edge of the platform. So once I laid in all the greenery and the sky in the background, I went in with some bronzy sort of colour. I have recently used my new gold palette that I got from Kuretake, and I'm seeing how it mixes with standard watercolours. And now one of my subscribers has actually told me since then that there's something in the gold watercolors that actually doesn't work with normal watercolors, just the way they make them. I think it was the mica in it. But basically, I now understand why this was not working the best. So all the gold flecks and the pigment that were in the gold watercolors seemed to break apart whenever I mixed it with the red from my normal watercolors. But so it didn't really work out the way I'd hoped. I'd hoped that it would sort of add a real bronziness to it. I still like the color that I came out with, but it was a bit upsetting that that nice vivid sort of gold pigment that was through in when you just use it as a standard gold, it didn't really come through when I mixed it with the red. So unfortunately I couldn't quite make the bronze that I was hoping for. But yeah, happy with the color. It's sort of, the sculpture itself is like almost a rusted cotton steel like appearance. But yeah, it's definitely bronzy, and I imagine it would be some sort of metal of some sort that's either been painted in a bronze or it's that weathered steel look. So yeah, but really beautiful. And what's cool about it is the sculpture itself. It looks like there's all the muscles have been like shaped separately and then like welded together into, and like it's like a patchwork of muscles, if you know what I mean, on the body. Very interesting sculpture. And yeah, I can't help but think, wow, this was probably, like put out as a government tender sort of thing, and artists probably applied, and just the thought of having something that iconic and unique above your city that you created, I mean, what a feeling that would have been for the artist. So I wasn't quite finished yet, but before I continued and figured out what I needed to add, I thought I would cut it up and get it ready into my journal so that I can see what sort of colours I needed to add. I felt like there was something missing, but I couldn't really decide what colour it was. So if you guys missed my last week's video, I actually announced there that I now have a Patreon account, which I'm going to include my bullet journal setups as printables for you guys and extra videos. And the main thing that I'm going to be doing on there, as lots of people have requested, is more real-time videos of how I actually paint my cover pages and my mind maps and things like that. So I get a little bit chatty and it's just me at the time going through the painting, so they can be kind of long. I'm actually uploading the cover page and mind map video that I'm going to put on Patreon on YouTube, so you can check it out to see what you're going to be getting if you're interested in Patreon and you're not quite sure whether you want to go ahead or not. At least that'll give you a little insight into what the video content will be like. So check that video out next if you want to see a more in-depth look in how I create this page, and then check out the Patreon if you think you might like to sign up. So I just want to quickly say thank you to my first 6 patrons. They are Auntie Hannah, Megan, V, Bree, Shane and Christine. Thank you guys so much. It really means the world to me, and I really hope you enjoy the content that I provide you. So I found an image on a postage stamp from Andorra that uses this viewpoint as its subject, and it's done in a sort of cartoon sort of look to it. But I liked that we could maybe make this whole Andorran setup sort of related to that postage stamp feel. So I decided to put this border around the picture itself and then cut out around it on the right hand side to give me that Dutch door that I love to include on my cover pages. And then once again, that color was still bothering me. It just felt a bit flat and dull, so I wanted to color it in. So I went dramatic and I got out my acrylic paints and used a vibrant yellow to add that warmth to it. Painted that on the background of both pages, one beneath and one on top, and then a beautiful sage green on the left-hand page. And I think that finished it off a little bit better, and it really made it stand out. So now I don't feel that it's lacking anything. If anything, it could be a little bit too much, but that's okay. I'll just remember that, you know, less is more sometimes. But yeah, so that was the finished cover page. I hope you like it. Okay, so now we're moving on to the calendar spread over the page. And because I've already got that yellow there on the right-hand side, that already gave me a really nice sort of pop of color. So I kept the colors quite minimal on this spread. I did it mostly black and white, and then went in with the Andorran coat of arms. And I will try to describe what each of the 4 quarters are, but it is a little bit historical and difficult to understand. But from what I gather, the top left is basically the arms of the Bishop of Erdjal, which is one of the co-princes of Andorra. And then the top right is the arms of the Count of Foix, which is now represented by the President of France. And then the bottom left is the arms of Catalonia, which is the region of Spain that they've had strong ties to historically. And then the bottom right is the arms of the Viscounts of Béarn, which is also one of the historical feudal lords of Andorra. But what's funny is it's represented by cows in that bottom right hand corner, and the cow is the national animal. So that was a way for me to get the national animal in this spread without actually having to draw a cow. Not that there's anything wrong with cows. I love cows, but I just thought it would be kind of random to draw a cow for some reason. Anyway, I was glad how they got on the spread without me neglecting them. And they're here and they look quite cute with their little cowbells on. And then I went in with my gold around the coat of arms and just added some more of that gold across the calendar days where I will put the days of the week. And luckily this month is a short month, so I was able to get a perfect calendar using 4 weeks. And for some reason that really floated my boat. I love this spread. I think it looks really nice, and just it looks very clean and neat. And I think it's to do with the fact that there's just that 4 nice plain weeks. I did want to add some more color to this one though, so I added a little bit more gold around the title and around my little box that I keep for tracking my YouTube growth down the bottom there. And just by adding a little bit of this gold pen always makes a spread pop, I think. So yeah, really happy with how this one turned out, quite royal looking. Probably one of my favorite calendar spreads that I've done in a while, because sometimes I feel they can get a bit cluttered, but this one worked out well that I could include the national animal and my goals and get it all onto one page and looking quite nice. Okay, so now we're moving on to the next page, which is where I keep my needs and wants. I do this in every monthly setup. I like a spot to keep a list of basically things that I need to buy or want to buy, and it just helps me stay focused on saving rather than spending. So I thought, because Andorra is actually known for being a duty-free place for shopping, people go there, especially if you're close to Andorra. They probably go across the border and make some big purchases over there because the taxes are non-existent on some of the shopping things. So it's quite an affluent country, and a lot of highlights of what you can do there is shopping when you're there. So I thought it would be cool to add little shopping bags as my needs and my wants. And then I've just decorated the area around it to sort of symbolize that whole tax-free shopping idea. So I've got a little duty-free emblem in the top right, and then I've got a little piggy bank in the bottom left with a euro symbol on it. Now, they do actually use the euro in Andorra, but they're actually not part of the European Union. So that was interesting. So I thought I'd just sort of do a little reference to that. And then I'm just trying to keep the color quite simple on this page by just using a touch of red. I think the most common things that people would buy over there is things like cosmetics, jewelry, technology, tobacco, alcohol, and clothes. So they're certainly shopping things that I would go for as well. So if I was in the area, I'd be hitting up the shops, I think. And here I'm using a technique that I've been doing quite a lot in my bullet journal lately, which is where I use the texter or the marker that I've been using. I just put it onto a ceramic dish and then I mix it with a little tiny bit of water, and it just waters it down enough to be sort of like a watercolor, and then you can use that on the spread, and it just keeps the colors all, together in the same tonal range. But it's also just a really simple way of doing a wash of color in small areas. I wouldn't recommend this on big areas because it dries extremely fast. But so I've done that with the pig and the drink on the other side, which I'll now talk about as we move on to the meal plan. So this monthly meal plan I include in each monthly setup. I just stick to a 7-day menu, and it just repeats throughout the month. Makes it nice and easy for your shopping. You get used to one thing, and it's just works out pretty affordable, and you can work out what's super simple for your family, and it just seems to work for us. So I just do a Monday to Sunday setup for the meal plan, and then I like to include the country's national dish here. But sometimes the national dish just doesn't work well in drawing format, and this unfortunately is one of those. So the national dish of Andorra is a thing called escudella, and it's basically a rich hearty stew that has cooked pasta and vegetables and meats and things like that. So I just don't know how I can illustrate that in a drawing very nicely. So instead I went for a few dishes that are very commonly found in Andorra and mostly Catalonian as well. So they speak Catalan in Andorra. It's the official language, and it's actually the only place in the world that has the official language of Catalan. These are Catalonian specials. Man, that's a hard word to say. These are Catalan specialties, and one of them is called crema catalana, which is very similar to a creme brulee. Now, the difference that I've read is that the French creme brulee is made with cream and vanilla, whereas the Catalan version is made with milk and cinnamon or lemon zest. So both sound delicious to me, as did one of the Catalan beverages called a granizado, which apparently is very popular in Andorra. And I believe it's basically like a slushy with some fruit and milk through it. Apparently it's very zesty and it looked delicious. And I liked this picture. It had a watermelon on it. So I thought watermelon, mint, lemon, it must be nice in a slushy form. So I've illustrated that in the middle. And then the final thing I put on this page was the traditional dish from Catalonia called escalivada. And I believe this is basically a smoky grilled vegetables that has, bell peppers and eggplants, Looked quite delicious, lots of garlic, and I think that would be very tasty. So I thought I'd put that on there. And then they're also known for their their sparkling wine over in Andorra. So just to symbolize that, I did a lot of bubbles around just to try and add a little bit of interest to that page as well. So I used some gold bubbles to collect that feeling on the spread. And then this page was finished. And now we're moving on to usually my favorite page of any setup. Now, unfortunately, this didn't turn out to be my favorite page this month. I went for something a little bit different because I found it really tricky to find a sort of recognizable face or a familiar figure that I could use for my lady from a mind map. Normally I use either someone famous or royal, or even just someone who's very specifically from that region or country. But I couldn't really find anything, I'm sorry. So what I did instead was I really found that their traditional dress was quite interesting. They have espadrilles and a flowy floral skirt, and then sometimes are covered up on the shoulders with a shawl, and then they wear long black netted gloves, and I just thought that sounded really cool. So I wanted to draw a girl sitting down on a rock in the Pyrenees and then tie in the national flower as well into the spread. So that's what I did here, and I'm quite happy with the drawing itself. It just doesn't have that appeal that I think of a sort of close-up portrait has for me. I just love doing faces, and because I had to do this lady's face so small, it just didn't work out for me. It doesn't make me feel the same way that my previous ones have. But nevertheless, I was trying something new and it was a bit different for me, so happy that I explored this option anyway. So once again, I found a postage stamp that had this kind of look on there. I'll put it on screen now so that you can see what I mean, but I thought I'd try and do that and modernize it a bit. So I found a modern girl sitting in a similar position, used that as a reference, and then I added my own outfit to her and a new hairstyle and things like that. Made her look more Andorran, I believe. But this was quite fun to do. I used the national flower, which is the poet's Narcissus, which is kind of like a form of daffodil, and sort of included that on her floral skirt, and then included it in the foreground, and then also in this background section. Don't ask me why I put it in a diamond. I just felt like I didn't want to do the entire scene because it would have got too busy, I think. Although it did end up a little bit busy anyway. But yeah, I thought it might just keep it contained a little bit if I put it into a diamond shape. And then I'm using my markers this time. These are a mixture of Ohuhu markers and some really cheap Aldi markers that I got a while back. So I don't use markers often, and whenever I get the chance, I really enjoy it. So I thought I'd use marker paper and then cut this out separately and stick it into my journal. And I thought I was done here when I was sticking it in, but it still felt wrong to me. There was not enough color, not enough pop. So I really went in and I went all in. I was like, hey, I'm not 100% happy anyway, so I may as well try some different things out. So I thought I'd add in that stamp idea of like a torn stamp around the edge, and then I continued that on the other side to match it up. And then I went in with some color, and this is where it gets full on and dramatic. So I decided to use a bold red, sort of purpley red, I guess, in the background. And that really made it pop, and I was happier with it. But yeah, I just wanted to add some contrast with the green. And if you watch my other video where I go through this with you in real time, you'll see how torn I was with what to do, really. I didn't know where to go. Once I'd done the first drawing, I was really happy, and then just to build it up was a real struggle. So yeah, unfortunately I struggled with this piece, but you know, in the end you can't win them all, as they say. And this is how this page turned out. Let me know what you think of this. Do you like seeing a full body, sort of a little bit more cartoony, or do you prefer those like portraits where I try and be really detailed? Yeah, at least this gives you a little idea of something else that you can possibly do in your own things. But yeah, let me know which you like better. And now we're moving on to the next page, which is my goodliness spread. And my goodliness spread is probably my favorite page this time. There's this place in Andorra called the Caldea Spa Complex, and it is the largest in Europe, found right in the heart of Andorra, which is the capital city, Andorra la Vella. And this looks amazing and sounds amazing. I don't know if I've captured it here in this drawing, but the building itself is this giant pyramid tower, made out of glass, and it basically stands out of the skyline of Andorra la Vella, and it's just this thing that you can't avoid looking at. But it's beautiful. Like, the architecture of it is stunning, and inside there's all these round little spas, like a network. There's levels of spas or jacuzzis, whatever you want to call them. Lots of pools and swimming, and then it's obviously a spa complex, so you would get your massages and your facials and all that jazz, like a complete relaxation place. So if you were traveling to Andorra and you wanted to shop and get pampered, this is the place to be. So I've illustrated a view from inside the spa complex, but looking up at one of the main buildings. So you sort of get an idea of what it is. There's like a beautiful pool and spa area outside, a few umbrellas for relaxing, and then looking up at the building itself as well. But yeah, God, this place looks gorgeous. But yeah, I just found it really cool that such a small country can have such a big feature. I mean, the biggest spa complex in Europe. So it's definitely something awesome that you can always find something cool about every country on this planet, like that everyone's got something special. So I hope that Andorra likes what I've chosen in this setup. I sure did. So I kept this spread very minimal. I only used a couple of Pitt Artist pens. I bought them new because I wanted them. And they're like all shades of blue and purpley blues. So I'm just using one marker and one or two markers and one fine liner to create this, all shades of blue on this spread. Then I added a little bit of silver just for a touch of something, a little bit of sparkle is always nice. And then lastly, if you're new here, the goodliness page is where I track all my habits. So normally I'll split them up into little tiny calendars, but this time I printed them out on one set of calendars, so it was just fitting on one page. And this worked really well because it saved me a hell of a lot of time in gluing. Last time the glue was just failing, and so many of them have come up in my journal. I don't know if you guys have experienced that, but it really bothered me. So I thought if we've just got one page to stick down, the page won't be lifting off as much. So once I stuck that in, I titled them up and finished this page. And now we're moving on to the final page of this monthly setup before I do my weeklies next week. So this one I decided to focus on that skiing aspect of Andorra because that is what it's known for. It is the skiing capital, the place to go for winter sports. And interestingly, Andorra la Vella is actually the highest capital city in Europe. It's over 1,000 meters above sea level, 1,023 meters above sea level to be exact. But yeah, I forgot to mention that earlier. So that's kind of, makes you realize how high up this is, hence all the mountains, and why it would be a great place to ski. So there were two ski resorts that kept popping up, and this was Val Nord and Grand Valira. Grand Valira is the largest resort in the Pyrenees for skiing and winter sports and stuff. So I thought I would get a picture of that and illustrate it here. Now I've kept it very simple with what I've used, just those Pitt Artist pens that I mentioned before, a couple of light greys, a couple of light blues, and then I've just tied all that in with the actual daily grid of each day of the week. Just using all those same tones. I really like the coolness of how this feels. Like, it actually feels cold when I'm looking at it. So yeah, it came out quite nicely, but very simple to do. So I hope you enjoyed that look at Andorra. I know so many of us were intrigued by what it would offer. I really love the look of it, but I did struggle. It was a little complicated to find the right things for my spreads. But I'm always happy to have a challenge, so I hope you enjoyed it. If you did like this content, don't forget to like the video and subscribe for more of my videos. I would appreciate that. If you want to vote for the next month's theme, don't forget to come back next week in my weeklies video where I will reveal 3 options for the countries of choice for the month of March. So I'll see you then. But for now, feel free to have a look at that video where I show you an example of what's on my Patreon, where I show you the cover page and the mind map in real time. All right, thanks guys. I'll see you soon. Bye.